Hi, it's Dr. Steve from Misericordia University. For this, our last class meeting of the semester, let's do a quick review of our entire course. Now, I'm saying a quick review because realize I'm going to go quickly over the material. It's not intended to be instructional, but rather to help you reflect and remember and see the connections and review a little bit of everything that we have done throughout the whole semester. So I'm going to go quickly through the material. I'll be referring to a Word document that I've uploaded on Blackboard called the Review of the Course. So let's take a look at that document. So I've opened the Word document here, the Review of the Course, and first let's start by talking about our final exam. The final exam will be a take-home, hands-on activity. I will post it to Blackboard later this week along with a due date, so watch for more information on the final exam activity. In terms of the course, we started with Module 1, in which we introduced and took a little survey look at educational technology. We started by defining technology and educational technology, and we said, in essence, EdTech was anything that can improve teaching and learning through the application of technology. And we looked at a brief history of educational technology, and then we explored, by my doing a little drama, about the teacher of the past and the teacher of the future. And we explored what the rationale was for using technology in education. In other words, all the benefits or the effectiveness of it. And then we rounded out this mod by looking at several current issues in EdTech and where you could find and stay up on those issues. And then we defined information literacy and its importance. And we pointed out that it's not computer literacy, but rather it's information literacy, and computers and certainly technology are a part of that. Then we moved into Module 2, Communication Technology. We started this mod by looking at email. Everybody uses email, but we started off with a group Kahoot, and then we looked at what are some of the aspects of email that every teacher needs to know. We defined netiquette, and we said that affects teachers and it'll affect the students that we teach. So many teachers will have to be referring to some of the core rules of netiquette when we teach our students. We looked at the URL, and we looked at the various elements and how you could recognize that, because we said that if you recognize those different parts of a URL, they can help you locate better information or information that might not be effective for use in teaching and in research. We looked at how to save a graphic from a web page. We considered how to create a temp folder, either on a desktop or a thumb drive or out in the cloud. Then we looked at searching. And in searching, we looked at different types of search engines. We looked at the meta search, we looked at the human-powered search engines, and the specialties. And then we got to use some of each of them throughout the semester. For example, one specialty search engine we used a lot was findsounds.com. And then we looked at different search engines that were designed specifically for children. We said that some of them would fit your style of teaching and your particular content areas, and some of them would not be as appropriate. And we also said, look around, because Google and Bing and some of the major search engines are not always the best to use with your students, depending on their maturity level and also on their experience and age. Then we looked at Google, because we said that is a fantastic search engine, and it's number one across the earth right now. We looked at how to do a drag and drop image search, and we searched for actual pictures. And we did an image search. And then when we found different images, we looked at the usage rights. We said that it's ideal to not just take any image at all, because many of them will be copyright protected. But we said if you find graphics that are labeled for reuse or labeled for non-commercial use, whether with modification or without modification, All of those are fair game for teachers and their students to use. Then we looked at different search strategies, different tools. We looked at, I call them tools for power users. We looked at using the quote. We looked at putting a minus sign. Now, remember we said have the minus sign touch the first letter of the next search term, and that means must exclude. In other words, that word will not come up in the search. Then we looked at in title, colon. Now remember, with these specialty tools that are available now only in Google, like in title, the colon must touch the first letter of the next term. If you put a space after the colon, the tool will fail. It will bomb. Then we looked at the cite tool. I like the entitle tool because it's looking for the title bar and what words are contained in it. But cite, colon, is my favorite powerful tool because it restricts a search to one particular website. And we did things like we looked up things at Misericordia, and we put cite colon misericordia.edu, and I pointed out, through example, don't put the W's in front of the URL because many times in today's world we're finding increasingly, like Misericordia, we also have athletics.misericordia.edu, writingcenter.misericordia, and there's no W's in front of it. So leave out the W's when you're using the cite tool. And then in front of the cite tool, put your traditional search terms. What are you looking for at athletics.misericordia.edu? So we looked at those, and we found that can save you a tremendous amount of time. And we said that Google provides a lot of quick answer searches, and everybody stumbles into those, but sometimes they don't realize that it's not that they're doing excellent searching, but rather they're using tools that have been prepared by Google to help us do better searching. Then we looked at the Google Translator. We looked at FTP in the communications mod. And we looked at how you can download files from web pages, how to recognize files, how to work with zip files, both opening them and creating them, and then using PDFs, and even copying text out of PDFs. Then we also looked at when you have a Word document, you can also say File, Save As a PDF file. Then we looked at why you might want to do that. Then we looked at Web 2.0 tools. And what's the difference between Web 2.0 versus Web 1.0? Well, the big difference is that, first of all, it was never called Web 1.0. That term never existed. But the Web 2.0 tools are tools that are interactives. And they are tools like blog, wikis, things where you're interacting back and forth. And it's not just you as a user reading something. And we said, why is memorizing facts much less significant in today's world in teaching and learning? We said the answer is simply because students have phones and they can go online, they could go to a search tool like Google, and they can very quickly look up those facts. So instead of spending a lot of time in today's classroom trying to examine those dates and times and things of that nature, we can delve into the deeper topics and how to apply them and how to use them instead of just memorizing them. In Module 3, we looked at research, and we looked at some background things. We looked at how to evaluate information that you access through the web. And we talked about why it's important, and we talked about 5 different criteria used to evaluate web pages as described by Alexander and Tate. We looked at searching Misericordia's library, and we looked at using the online databases, specifically EBSCOhost. We said it's very good to go there because you can find better quality articles versus going onto the web in general. In Mod 4, we dealt with software, and we looked at some of the common Office Suite apps. We looked at Word, and we started by looking at, very quickly, templates to create resumes and brochures and different types of documents that you could create either as a teacher or ask your students to create. We looked at some of the tricky things that go on with graphics in Word, because we pointed out that in Word, graphics and text don't always mix very well. So we looked at all the little particulars that we could do, including adding a drawing canvas to your document, and then using insert shapes and creating drawings in your Word document. And then we looked outside of Word, and we said that there are some online free editors which would kind of do the Photoshop types of activities and allow you to do more heavy editing. We also looked at how to do basic editing right within the Microsoft suite of programs as well. We looked at formatting text into columns, header and footer, and one of the main things we did was we used multi-level list tool to create a test for students. And we said this was a very valuable thing to do. It saves you a lot of time. This way, when you do a test or a quiz or a worksheet for students, you can create multiple choice. We can say 1 and then A, B, C, D, and do it quickly and effectively. Then we went into PowerPoint, and we looked at all the basic things you can do with slides, with text boxes. We looked at artistic backgrounds on slides, because we said that one thing that can set your PowerPoint apart from that of many other people is what you do in terms of the artistry. And then we looked at things like slide transitions in that process as well. We searched for graphics, we searched for sounds, and we talked about even adding music. We expanded clip art by looking at the clip art possibilities that we can now get through Bing or through Google. We looked at setting a transparent color in a graphic. We talked about the importance to compress graphics so that the resolution on the screen, you're not using the highest definition on a presentation where you're not going to print out the graphic, because you're going to be wasting a lot of bandwidth and making your files way too big. We looked at how to use an action button to add video to a slide. And we created custom animations, and we looked at how to use callouts. We looked at how to add sound to animations and some of the little tricks that are involved with those types of techniques. We looked at using the advanced timeline in case you need to tweak it a little bit in terms of when things play. And we looked at triggering animations to play when a particular object on a slide is clicked, such as clicking on the cow, and then it would jump over the moon. We looked at action buttons and how we could have those work for us. We looked at creating even an invisible action button, and we could use those strategically to create hotspots in graphics. We created a mouse over button, and we specified action settings, which is that's what the action buttons do. Well, we could apply those to graphics or even text boxes. I showed you how to use the print screen key and then use Control V in order to screen capture, to take a picture of the current screen, which many times is very helpful when we're teaching with technology and we're trying to show students how to use certain technologies. We take a picture of what we're looking at on the screen and use it in instruction. And then we also looked at UDL and accessible guidelines to help all learners be able to read our material easily. Then we moved into Excel, and we looked at formatting cells, we looked at adjusting all the widths, adding, deleting various elements. We looked at creating and working with formulas, and the formulas were the manual calculations that we did, like adding by saying this cell plus that cell. And we also did it through automatic functions by pressing the FX key, and then we're able to say, give me the sum or the average. We used data fill handle, and we looked at smart copying, and we also looked at how you could weight a grade book. We created and we formatted charts, And we looked at a couple of special situations in spreadsheets. We looked at using the dollar signs to create an absolute cell reference. We don't get to use that very often, but we pointed that out. We also pointed out the circular reference error. Doesn't happen a lot, but if you encounter that, you know how to correct it. And we looked at the order of operations, which is if you were trying to do a grade book and you're trying to find an average, you have to use parentheses in order to respect the order of operations. In Module 5, we focused on teaching with technology. We did a lot of different things in this mod. We started off with Active Inspire for the Promethean board. We looked at basic skills and how to work with the interface. We pulled answers out of a hat or another object. We grouped magic ink with a revealing object, like a hand lens or a pair of eyeglasses, so we could reveal things when we were, or have students reveal them when they roll over them in class. We created a situation where students could drag a possible right answer or wrong answer to a container. The right answers would stay in, the wrong answers would be rejected. We did that with one correct answer, and we did the same kind of activity with multiple correct answers and then even multiple containers. We also looked at creating an activity, what's called an activity, in the latest version of the software. Right from the dashboard, you can select an activity such as crossword or flashcards or Venn diagrams and so on, and you can embed them right onto a flip chart page. We moved into Scratch coding. We said don't be afraid of programming or coding. It's actually pretty easy, and especially using a tool like Scratch Online at MIT. So we looked at adding sprites, changing backdrops. We moved sprites. We changed the way they looked. We had them play sounds. Then we used loops. We used variables. We even made it interactive with our student users by asking a question using the ask and wait block of coding, and then we would have the sprite do something based on what answer they received from the user. In class, we used different apps throughout the semester. We used Padlet back in Mod 2 when I was doing the Teacher of the Future demonstration. We used Kahoot when we were doing the Mod 2 searching, and that was a group Kahoot, which was a lot of fun, and it was really, we received a lot of positive comments on how effective it was from all of you. And then we used Go Soapbox. That's when we were looking at the technical aspects of writing a course paper. And I used that to see if everybody was on track with it, using the confusion barometer, and also to gather any questions that you might have when we were going through all that technical information. Then we moved into virtual experiences in the classroom, augmented reality. We did this as we were rounding out the end of the semester. And oh, those great apps we looked at. We looked at animals and walking through virtual portals to other places in the world. We looked at, for younger children, we could have them color a page and bring it to life in 3D. We looked at rendering mathematical equations as 3D shapes where students can walk through them and really explore them and understand them better. We looked at virtual Lincoln. We looked at the merge cube, in which we digitally mapped the solar system onto a cube so our students could manipulate it and move it around and experience it. We looked at apps for older students. We looked at civilizations, where we found different museum-type artifacts that would appear in our reality. And then we looked at the human heart, using a marker, the marker was a handout of the human heart, and that was by Magic Software. And then we finished that area by looking at apps for outdoors or larger spaces, and we looked at Google Expeditions AR. We said Google Expeditions also offers virtual reality too, but we really focused in on the AR part of that. And I walked into the Colosseum in Rome and onto an ancient Roman boat. And then we looked at tools for assessment and allowing our students to demonstrate their knowledge and understanding of the content that they were learning. And we looked at tools we could support students with, like the Timeline app. We looked at supporting students at different reading levels. We looked at simulated social media tools like Fakebook and Twister, which is kind of like Twitter. We looked at a whole bunch of teaching tools that would help you providing links for students, working with QR codes to share resources. We looked at student response systems and grading apps, and also how you could make it a video interactive with Play Pose It, and that way you could send it home with students and know that they were looking at that video because they have to answer questions about it. We looked at creative alternatives to writing assignments, a whole bunch of tools that kind of just get us started in that direction, but very powerful tools where you can have students writing and make it interesting for them and really motivate them to write. We looked at various class games and even the ability for you as a teacher to create your own online game. And then we looked at teaching tool collections, and they contain all kinds of tools that teachers can use to incorporate more technology in their classroom. And then speaking of incorporating technology in the classroom, how are you going to locate apps that will help teach your content? You could go to Common Sense Education. Our final three mods, 6, 7, and 8, we did remotely, and we looked at online safety, in which we looked at identity theft, talked about spyware, cyberbullying, and the dangerous practice of sexting that some of our young students will get into. Mod 7, technology and disabilities. So we looked at how we could quickly increase the size of text. You hold the control key and spin the wheel of the mouse. We looked at universal design for learning, their guidelines. We looked at the PC-based ease of access center, how we can make a PC more accessible to users. And then we said that young students encounter different difficulties when they're using a computer mouse. So even though they're not impaired technically, but they kind of are impaired in terms of not being able to see or use the mouse well. So we can use some of these accessibility options to help them use and recognize the mouse pointer on the screen better. And then Mod 8 dealt with ethical and fair use of technology. We said that anyone who produces any kind of creative work automatically holds a copyright in our country. Now, they can go and copyright it formally through the government, but even if they don't, we still have to respect their work. What type of information cannot be copyright? Anything that is provided by the government and anything that's public domain. Wow, that was a lot of material. I really hope you enjoyed the educational technology course. I really enjoyed having you in class. I miss seeing everybody in person, but I really look forward to seeing you back on campus in the fall. Have a wonderful summer.